That's not doing much. I guess I'll keep it on just in case. Though, but, yeah. Party people. In the place to be. Finally. It's me. It's funny that that's supposed to be a take on another wrestler. I'm copying another wrestler for the intro. Finally, party people in the place to be. What's going on? It's me. It's me. I just came out of the Smashing Machine. This is an out of the theater review, of course, via 2-drink minimum. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe wherever you are watching this. Let me see if I can unsmudge this a little bit. See if that looks a little bit better. Stop. Go back. Where is it? Get out of there. Okay. Not much. So, yeah, I just left the Smashing Machine movie as it was playing today in the theater. This is my out of theater review. Are we all waiting for the right hand turn lane? Or are you waiting for the dog? You all waiting for the dog. Okay. Yeah, so I just left the theater from it. I think nationwide it comes out tomorrow. I just saw it today. If it comes out tomorrow and you're watching this then, you know, however you're watching this is the internet. Time doesn't matter. Death is but a door, time is but a window, I'll be back. Said a wise man once. There's a lot to, I don't know that there's a lot. There's some stuff in this movie that works. There's some stuff in this movie that, just like the last movie, just like One Battle After Another, which I reviewed, it's not so much that there's stuff that doesn't work in this movie, so much as there's stuff that could have worked better had they done them differently. There are definitely some shots that you kind of wish you would have seen that they cut away from. There were a couple of them, almost back to back. In fact, there were a couple of different things. They were kind of nebulous. This movie felt like it wasn't like it was Mark Kerr's story, the UFC MMA fighter Mark Kerr, and wrestler MMA fighter Mark Kerr, the professional fighter Mark Kerr, and it felt like the Dwayne Johnson story in a lot of ways. Not so much that he went through the same stuff necessarily. There's some stuff in here obviously having to do with you know, actually no, he doesn't. They don't talk about. It's funny. There's a lot. This feels like the Dwayne Johnson story in so much as it's surface level on a lot, fills a lot of time talking and doing stuff, looks great, looks really good, but not as substantive as you would want it to be, as you would hope it to be, as the hype makes it seem to be as a movie. Like I said, it looks great, but there's some, and it's not inauthentic so much. It doesn't necessarily feel inauthentic, and it feels and looks better than, I can't even think of the last good biopic I've seen offhand. You know, for me, the standard has been Ray and Walk the Line, and after that, you just got these cheap, terrible copycats, all of them, that play by the numbers but don't know why those numbers are there. And then that's offhand. Maybe there was a good biopic that I saw, but I would be, if it was that good, I don't even remember it. I'd be hard pressed to think of a good biopic that I've seen since really Walk the Line or Ray. So this one is different. This one is better looking, and it's done better. But it feels like it's trying to show you. Here's why it feels like Dwayne Johnson. It feels like it's trying to sell you something, to show you a side that is palatable to generally enough people without telling the grit and the story that, you know, if you know, you know, or that would help fill in some of those gaps. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't quite feel corporate. I'll tell you that one. It doesn't quite feel corporate. It doesn't feel corporate. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's desperate for an Oscar, but it certainly isn't. It isn't as, ironically enough, hard hitting as you would think it is. That's a little off for me. I'll say this early on. This is all non-spoilers. Early on, I very much knew I was listening to The Rock. It very much sounded like corporate, or not The Rock, corporate Dwayne. It very much, because if it were The Rock owes me some money. All right, there was a horse that was called Final Boss that was in Santa Anita last weekend that was leading the pack and then ended up dead last in the last like 5 seconds. So if the boys in New York put in a call, Rock, you owe me $7. Final Boss, and you screwed up my trifecta, you mother. Anyway, that's neither here nor there unless Rock's actually going to send me the money. But very early on, it sounded like corporate Dwayne. And we know what corporate Dwayne sounds like, right? We've heard corporate Dwayne since the TKO merger, right? That's the corporate Dwayne that spent 45 minutes sucking the dicks of all the executives that were in the audience in the Netflix premiere for no reason whatsoever. Hey, and this guy, he's the coffee guy. And this guy, he knows exactly how to make the coffee just right, mixes it up there with this little whisk or whatever. And this guy over here, and no, it wasn't even the copy guy or the coffee guy. It was, and this is an executive that doesn't do anything in their office. And there's another executive that gets paid millions and millions of dollars to sit on their ass and not do anything. And there's another executive that gets paid millions and millions of dollars to come up with one idea every 5 years to justify their job that ruins something, but they justified their job and they get another $1 million. And there's another corporate crony. Like, that was what we had to sit through for 45 minutes. Now Rock's definitely not gonna send me that $7, but that's what we that Dwayne, that corporate Dwayne that we hear in press conferences, that corporate Dwayne, we heard when he was trying to justify the shit that was going on in Hawaii with Oprah and all that horse shit. Yeah, the corporate Dwayne. But that was super early on. That was like the first line that he said. After that, he actually did start slipping into Mark Kerr. It took a minute for that to really happen, but he did start slipping into Mark Kerr. Now I'll say this. There was like maybe a shot or two, and I think it might have been like after one of his fights, where he did look like Mr. Peeps, the monkey he played on SNL with Chris Kattan. I think it was Mr. Peeps or Mr. Peepers. Y'all know from the WrestleMania 2000 episode where he also played the monkey there. There was a couple of shots I think after the fight, but that was like one. I was like just one shot. After that, and especially near the end, it got super good. Although at a certain point, Mark Kerr shaves his hair, and the audience is like, "Oh, that's The Rock." but again, only for like a second, and then your eyes adjust to it, and he slips back into being Mark Kerr. This looks super shaky, I'm sure, for some reason. I don't know why it looks as shaky as it does. It didn't before the last time I did this. Anyway, but the prosthetics were very good. I'll give the prosthetics this. It was very, very good. The way it was shot, it almost, not documentary style, but it almost feels more true to life, more real life, more real life style in a lot of, in most of the shots. The fighting looks good, choreographed very well. Definitely gives you the feel of being there at the event. The training looks good. Rock looks good in the movie, in all aspects. You know, he looks physically like Mark Kerr, body, face, etc. It's a good looking movie. And again, it doesn't, and that's the other thing. It's not necessarily gritty. It's not necessarily like the first scene takes place and it looks like a 95 VHS cassette. It looks like a 95 camcorder shot, but not like in the stupid way that TikTok has those stupid filters that kids look nothing like the 80s and 90s looked. That shit looks nothing like the 80s. That shit looks nothing like the 80s and 90s. All that lo-fi stuff you see on YouTube, that is not what it looked like in the 80s and 90s. This video is more like what it looked like in the 80s. Good God, I'm sorry for all the shakiness. It has never been this shaky before. I don't know why it's this shaky now. My tires good? It looks super shaky. Maybe it's my glasses, but it did not look this shaky before. Anyway, just listen to it. So it looks really good. The casting is generally really good as far as rock. Part of that though is the heavy lifting is done by other MMA fighters, so they automatically look the part, and they feel the part. They don't seem like they're acting. You know how athletes very often when they're acting feel very stunted because they don't know how to deliver a line. Right, that's not how this goes. They're all pretty good. Emily Blunt plays his girlfriend in this. So all that, very, very good. It does take its time with some stuff. Sometimes enough time, sometimes a little bit too much time, and sometimes the connection isn't about time. So the connection and or type of relationship that Mark Kerr has with the Emily Blunt character, I forget her name automatically, with the Emily Blunt character, Dawn. With the Emily Blunt character, I know that type of relationship because I've seen different markers of it in many different things in real life. Secondhand, third hand, some stuff firsthand, not everything, some stuff. But definitely secondhand, for sure secondhand. And in other media, but there's again, it doesn't go into it leaves stuff out. That's super shaky because I think the road here on Ocean isn't great. But it leaves stuff out. It leaves stuff out. It leaves some stuff empty that you kind of wish they'd fill in. And the movie doesn't go in the direction that you think it's going to go. It actually, in a lot of ways, is really a movie about friendship of Mark Kerr and another fighter, Mark Coleman, more than a lot of other stuff. I mean, a lot of other stuff. Like that takes up that's probably a third of the, not screen time, but importance in this movie. And the importances are probably split up about 3 to 4 segments. So if it's not a third, it's a quarter of the importance of this movie. And segments. So if it's not a third, it's a quarter of the importance of this movie. And man, I don't know. Like, I like that it doesn't do the general biopic thing of going through this whole life, right? Okay, great. That was another thing that Ray didn't do. Ray, we saw him growing up. Fast forward to him as an adult, goes through a couple decades, or decade or so. It was a decade? A couple decades. Maybe a couple decades. And then Ray went on to be the biggest thing ever, right? Great. But man, there's a lot of stuff left out that could have at least been mentioned or talked about to fill in the world a little bit more. About Mark Kerr's career. Like, I watched a YouTube video going into the rise and fall of Mark Kerr, probably a couple weeks ago. And I feel like I took away more from that 30-minute YouTube video that someone did and researched than I did from this movie. I feel like I took away more from that than I did from this movie. And it doesn't whitewash or take away stuff the way like Bohemian Rhapsody did. Bohemian Rhapsody was atrocious. Bohemian Rhapsody was a crime against humanity, against film, and against music in general, and especially against Queen and Freddie Mercury. What else? Get On Up. Get On Up sucked. Get On Up sucked. Don't believe any of the morons on Facebook that tell you it didn't. Get On Up sucked. And oh, Chadwick Boseman went in it. Okay, he was in a movie that sucked. That happens sometimes. Actors sometimes are in movies that suck. And whether or not they embody the character, sometimes there are movies that suck. Sorry. And Get On Up was terrible. Because it was a PG-13 movie, and James Brown did not live a PG-13 life at all. He lived a hard R life, maybe NC-17. That should not have been PG-13. So sorry, kids. So sorry. And you can't tell that. You can't tell James Brown's story in a PG-13 movie. You can't. You can tell Ray's, but you can't tell James's. James's has a lot more violence in it. You can't tell James's. James's has a lot more violence and arrests and a whole bunch of other stuff. You can't tell James's story in PG-13. But this one, Smashing Machine, so it wasn't like that. It wasn't as watered down as that. It wasn't as obviously neutered as that. It wasn't as just Disneyfied as those movies were. But this is definitely a shinier, happier people type version than the real Mark Kerr story. And they stop in like May of 2000, and they tell you it's from 97 to May of 2000. So if you're going to pick that time frame in a movie like this, it better be the most pivotal time frame in somebody's life. And there better be so much happening that you walk out of the theater like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they fit all that in so well to 2 hours, 2.5 hours, to 90 minutes, to maybe even 2.5. If you're ambitious enough, you can get away with 2.5. But I didn't feel that. It felt like they were padding for time, if anything, sometimes. There were definitely, and again, well shot, but there were definitely times, there were definitely shots, there were definitely scenes that you walk away from them like, what did this scene accomplish? What did this scene move forward? And there were a lot of scenes that, again, well shot, well acted, great on everybody, directed well, that didn't accomplish much. That you walk away from it and didn't accomplish a whole lot. It really didn't. It's really so didn't accomplish a whole lot. Like it was like a dinner of just a side salad, and not a salad for dinner, not like a big salad for dinner, just a side salad that you would get at like a small restaurant. It's like, okay, that's something, I guess, but I probably should have ordered, if I was gonna get a salad, a bigger salad, or I probably should have gotten chicken or something. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like it felt, I don't want to say anemic, but it did feel thin. Because it didn't feel so thin that it was egregious. But that again was from the craftsmanship. And this, I think, this feels a lot like One Battle After Another that I just left the other day, which I have very similar feelings in that it was shot well, it was acted well, but there was definitely some parts in it that could have been better, and there were definitely some parts in this that could have been better. So before I go repeating myself too much, let's start thinking about spoilers section here, kiddies. More jumbling. I'm so sorry. These shots. Oh my gosh, it looks like I'm just on permanent vibrate right now. Let's see. No one fixes the potholes in Long Beach. Let's see. So yeah, if I can get a spot, and people park like assholes. Oh, let me take up 2 spots for no reason whatsoever. No, I'm not saving it for somebody in my house. I'm just making sure nobody else can park here. Doom-ba-doom. I should take that one. I think I could have gotten that one. Fuck, I'm about to wrap around. Or just take this one and walk. Okay, so we're about to get into spoiler territory. So this is about the time where I will warn you about the spoilers we're about to get into. I will get into spoilers after we will dip after I take this sip into spoiler territory. Okay. Smashing Machine by about Mark Kerr. Rock is Mark Kerr. Emily Blunt is his girlfriend Dawn. They have a toxic relationship. We don't really see exactly why the relationship is super toxic. There are like the impetus or where it comes from, where it stems from. Early on, like we kind of think that it's like Mark has anger issues, at least in this version of the movie, but he's still kind of gentle giant-y, right? And it brushes with that a bit, but doesn't actually get into him actually doing anything to Dawn. Okay. It brushes with Dawn being this sort of toxic chick, this sort of, toxic, clingy, but not necessarily, but not even that she's clingy. It's just that she's just, there's something, she almost seems like she kind of wants to get into altercations with Mark or kind of set him off sometimes, but then sometimes it's like Mark gets tripped by her over nothing, and he responds weird, and I don't know if they're trying to make it seem like he's like that because he's got an addiction, because he does have an addiction to opioids, which they again lightly brush on really early on in the movie. We don't get to see a whole lot. Like we see the shoot up scene. There's one scene where he's in the bathroom and he shoots up. I think that's one of those Hollywood rituals, right? Where we're going to do a biopic that's supposed to get you an Oscar. You do the scene of you shooting the needle, right? And I don't know where Rock got that from. I'm sure he's incredibly unfamiliar with needles. How he was able to handle that and do that should earn him an Oscar, because he's, whole milk and chicken and broccoli for 30 something years. Anyway, there's that scene, and he's addicted to the opioids. Doesn't talk at all about steroids. They don't talk at all about steroids. Okay? I mean at all. They don't at all. Okay. And then, so there's two scenes, and they happen back to back. So there's one scene where Mark he's high on the opioids, and he's in his living room watching TV stoned, right? Just zonked out. And then Don comes down and essentially starts an argument with him about being high. He said he's going to quit, yada, yada, yada. So that breaks him somewhat out of his high, and he starts to walk away. And when he does, like, he's got a plate in his hand, and you expect him to toss the plate, right? That's the scene. You toss the plate, right? That's the classic dramatic scene. But he doesn't. Instead, there's a door, I guess, the kitchen door that swings open into the living room, and he smashes the door. But we don't see him smash the door. We see his arm go towards the door, and then it cuts to Emily Blunt's face. Now, to get that across better, unless the door looks like shit when it's smashed, unless that effect looked like absolute garbage and you couldn't repeat it, you couldn't get another door, you couldn't get a door that looked better, there's no room in the budget for a better looking door or something. Unless it just completely looked like styrofoam when it broke, you keep the camera on Mark smashing the door so that you as the audience get the full effect of, it gives you a full effect of a couple different things. It gives you the full effect of his power that he has, and then you can take that into him when he's in the ring with a fighter, and or the anger that he feels, and or what he could do to the Dawn, if you want to get the fear across, or her fearing for her safety around him, something like that, if that's what you want to get across. And maybe that's why they took that out. But then don't do that scene. Like, again, or don't do the movie. Again, I feel it almost, now that I'm going to dissect it, this is media literacy, kids. I know. Oh, rambling in the car, and you're just a hater, and you, yes, I'm forcing you to think here on this channel, kids. I'm sorry. This thing in here, this thing in here, I'm forcing you to use it now. It's media literacy. They didn't want you to see that. They wanted you to see a cleaner version of Mark Kerr, and really a cleaner version of The Rock. They don't want you to see The Rock doing something like that. They don't want you to see that in a movie, even though, you know, he's played whatever he's played in different, he probably has. I don't think he really has, right? The most evil person he's played was in The Mummy, and then they whitewashed that with The Mummy, the Scorpion King. Yeah, the most evil thing he's played is in WWE, and they're washing that away. They're whitewashing that too. So I don't think they wanted you to see that version of Mark Kerr. But as a movie, as someone who enjoys movies and someone who enjoys TV and can see where the dramatic point is, even if you don't recognize it, even if you don't know what it's doing, this is what should happen for somebody who is media illiterate, that they don't necessarily need to see it, or they don't necessarily need to understand it, why that scene, seeing that, triggers something in them that triggers a response. And they didn't do that on purpose. And then almost immediately after that scene, after they reconcile afterwards, and he's like, I just want you to see me as a man. And she crawls on his lap in the kitchen and puts her hand around his head. And you get, but it doesn't even feel like a talk. It's weird how that scene goes down too, because that's a thing that you would expect from a guy in a toxic relationship to say to a girl in a toxic relationship, and they're both toxic enough to believe that horseshit, right? At least the way it was said, and after, and when it was said, after he smashed the door. You know what I mean? Like, not after she actually disrespects him or something. Like, not after, you know what I mean? Like, not after she, like, you know, tells everybody that he's got a short dick, you know, in front of a party, or blurts out his kink in front of everybody. No. Not, you know, no. After she tells him that he needs to get off drugs and he smashes the door. Then it said, I need you to treat me like a man. Weird. But it's not played like you're supposed to get the, ooh, this relationship's in trouble vibe. It's kinda, like, it's not kinda played like that. Anyway, almost immediately after that, Dawn puts in a call to Mark Coleman, which is Kerr's best friend in the movie, and basically other equal in this movie, and about how Mark Kerr couldn't get up. He was in the bedroom. He was passed out on opiates. He was too high. And she's crying and screaming. And Coleman, we see the juxtaposition. Coleman is with his family, playing with his daughter. And he gets that call, and he says he's going to fly out to Arizona and see them. And then the next scene we see is Mark Coleman in the hospital going to see Mark Kerr. Did you notice what I said, what I didn't say that we saw? What didn't I say that we saw? What did I say happened, and what didn't I say happened? What didn't we see? Pencils down. We didn't see him fall. We didn't see him on the floor. We didn't see him pass out. We didn't see her find him. You could have gotten away with her finding him. This is Emily Blunt. She's a professional actress. She can probably pull off that scene. We didn't see that. Why didn't we see that? We've seen The Rock play knocked out before. We've seen The Rock flat on his stomach before. Flat on his back. We've seen it. Don't tell me while they were filming this, Rock flopped all around like he was taking a Stone Cold Stunner in 1997. Don't tell me that happened. Because you didn't have to do all that. Why wasn't that scene in the movie? In that scene, this movie broke a cardinal rule. Show, don't tell. It told. It told. And that is a scene, even if you want to get away with, okay, fine, Rock, the door, something funky happened with the door and didn't look good in editing. You show Rock passed out on the ground. Yeah. That's basic. Man, that's basic. That is like reading, baby. Fundamental. You show that. And they didn't show it. And they didn't show it. So weird. But we see a couple instances where Mark Kerr cries, and it's not hilarious crying. It's not like super hilarious. But it is an interesting juxtaposition seeing this giant man crying. And it's not terrible. Like, it's not like, oh my God, this acting is awful. It's fine. The couple of times we see it after he quote unquote loses a fight, but not really, you know, he got kneed in the head. And even then, so you think that that's going to start talking about CTE. You think that's going to start talking about head issues. You think that's going to start going into the issues Mark Kerr had later in life, or up to today, the physical things. You would think that would start going into that until you remember that Dwayne Johnson, $7 Productions, produced this movie alongside A24, and that Dwayne Johnson is a shareholder, is on the board of TKO. And what does TKO not want you to think about? Same thing the NFL doesn't want you to think about. Concussions. That's right. So while it doesn't look corporate whitewashed like some of these other biopics do, if you know, this is the problem with knowing shit, man. This is really the problem with knowing stuff. If you know stuff, when you see stuff, it immediately hits you in the head. It immediately, ironically enough, it immediately triggers something where you're like, oh, I know exactly why this is happening. Huh. I know so it doesn't play like Mark Kerr is rocked by these, is super, you know what I mean? Like, it is. And even then, they do kind of brush on it, how pride, you can't knee somebody when they're face down in a prone position, but if they're face up in a prone position, you can knee the top of their heads. Sure. Okay. And that's an interesting take, you know, and definitely something that you notice because it plays at the end, but that's just weird. And again, Mark Coleman plays a big part in this. He's helping train Mark Kerr for a lot of these fights. So they go back and forth to Japan. So here's the other part. We don't spend a lot of time in the US with UFC. We don't. Matter of fact, was there a scene in the cage? I don't know that there was a scene in the cage. We were backstage at a UFC event. If there was, I don't remember it. If there was, I don't remember him being in the octagon. Because he spent so much time in Pride. In the movie, he spent so much time in Pride. I don't remember him being in the octagon. Which also makes sense. Because of the wonderful things TKO does. It also makes sense. Huh. I just thought about that. I don't know that he was actually in an octagon in this movie. He might have been, but if he wasn't, I can't remember it because he was in Pride so often over in Japan. That's interesting. That's really, wow. Okay. So anyway, the movie continues. We get more with the toxic relationship with him and Dawn. But again, we don't really understand why it's toxic all the time. And then there's one, here's interesting enough. With Rock and Dawn, Mark Kerr and Dawn, in this movie, they have an extended scene where they're at a carnival and you could see them being romantic and having fun with each other for an extended period of time. The Smashing Machine puts more effort into showing you why, if for any reason, after we've already seen the toxicity in the relationship, which isn't the most toxic, it's PG-13 toxicity, or in fact, it's really just PG toxicity. Yeah, it's a little PG-8 toxicity. But they put more emphasis and more time into building their relationship and chemistry with this one carnival scene than James Gunn did in Superman. Then, what was the other movie I saw where they didn't put the energy into the relationship? One battle after another. They didn't really do a whole lot with the father-daughter relationship there. And there's another one that go through my library, Surreal 469, SURREAL, the numbers 469 and everything. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. But yeah, there's more emphasis on their relationship and their fucked up relationship. But again, you don't even necessarily really understand the fucked up relationship. So Mark Kerr has a heart attack. He decides he's going to change his life around. And from then on, according to this movie, he changed his life around and he never touched opioid ever again. There's a scene where we see him sipping a beer, but it probably, his beer wasn't his issue. Probably nothing, right? Again, nothing about steroids, but okay. He's sipping a beer, and this is when he gets to another argument with Dawn, and he ends up tossing the bottle. He does the dramatic toss the bottle thing, and she tells her to leave and go pack a bag, and she goes to the bedroom, and he looks like he's starting to change his mind, and he goes to see her, and she puts a gun up to her head, and he tackles her, and she dashes off to the bathroom, and he hears pills. He breaks into the bathroom, and she ends up getting taken away by the cops, probably to a hospital or something like that. And then it says that they came back together and had a son at the end of the movie. But we don't see that part. And that actually did get a gas from the audience because we actually saw the gun. But again, we should have seen stuff like this along the way. We should have seen the door breaking. We should have seen, what was the other thing? We should have seen Mark falling. We should have seen stuff like that along the way beforehand. And again, it wasn't Rock doing it. It was Emily Blunt doing it. It wasn't Rock. What was Rock doing? Rock was comforting her. Rock was saving her. Rock tackled her on the bed to keep her from shooting herself. Rock held her in the bathroom so she wouldn't swallow the pills. Rock was the savior. Right? Mark Kerr was the savior in this, right? Whether that actually happened in real life or not, in that way, probably not. But that's how they portrayed it here. Very, very new age Dwayne Johnson-y, what we're seeing here, right? Right? Again, looks great. The sparkle on it is great. Looks modern and everything. Cool. Doesn't look as cookie or by the numbers. You're interested in it a little bit. This is the cinematic equivalent of the final boss coming back. And you think, he's going to turn on Roman. What's going to happen here? Him and Cody. What's this? I want your soul. Okay. This. And then it turns out to be nothing. Turns out to be absolutely nothing. Womp womp. So, yeah. that was this movie. And the Mark Coleman thing, the thing with Mark Coleman, it's really kind of, you see him progressing as a fighter alongside Mark Kerr as he's progressing as a fighter. At the end, he wins the big tournament. But, that him and Mark Kerr were supposed to compete against each other in, but Mark Kerr, at some point in the fight, he just freezes. And again, they don't go into it. They don't explain it. They don't talk about it. They don't, you know what I mean? It's just why he lost. He just lost because he just froze and couldn't, you know what I mean? He didn't have the wherewithal to bring himself back. He didn't lose, you know what I mean? Like there's no internal shots. There's no like talk about what's happening. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, even though it was super early in the not advent, but in the idea that maybe head injuries might be a thing, etc., especially for fighters that size and that kind of fighting, etc. they don't go into it enough for this movie. So even if the world doesn't know what's going on, we should see more of that internal struggle from Mark Kerr, and we don't. We see more of Mark Coleman progressing as a fighter than we do the progression of Mark Kerr figuring out he may have issues with his head. And even we see more, and even then we don't even see him struggling with drugs. We see him going into rehab and coming back out. He literally, he walks into the rehab facility. Mark Coleman does some more fighting, and then Mark Kerr comes out. We don't see his struggle getting out of the drugs, right? Ray, we see the scene of Ray getting off heroin. We don't see Mark Kerr figuring all that shit out. We don't. He just comes out, has a sponsor, and is talking like somebody who just got a sponsor for the rest of the movie. That's it. That's it. This movie is not as substantive as I was hoping it would be, and as it probably should have been, but probably was never going to be, because not only was Dwayne Johnson in it, but it was a $7 production. So it was a $7 production, I'm sure, in conjunction with TKO and the UFC. So it was never going to be as substantive as it should have been. And that's a shame. Or as it could have been. Or even as it could have been to still, I don't know. And it ends with Mark Kerr, in the grocery store getting groceries and then waving to the camera and driving off. It's a really weird way for it to end. It's almost like they didn't have an ending, and they just did that. It's almost like they didn't have an ending / they wanted to introduce the world to Mark Kerr. Okay. But I'm also more interested in how he and Dawn got married and had a kid, right? Like how and why they got married and had a kid. You know what I mean? More about their relationship. Here's why their relationship has the scent of toxicity on it, but not the substance of toxicity on it, because it's like everything else in this movie. It's like everything else in the movie and everything else having to do, especially nowadays, with The Rock. I've said it before. It's very surface level. It's not as corporate blandy as it could be, or as some other corporate bland slop generally is, but it's lacking substance. It's certainly lacking substance. The veneer is very good. The shell is very good. It looks great. It doesn't just, it's a play where the scenery doesn't just look like somebody painted a sheet in front of the screen where everybody walks past it and it waves by. No, this is a great set. It looks like you're outside. It looks like you're in Arizona. It looks like you're in 1997. Looks like you're in 1998. Looks like you're in 1999. Looks great. Fighting looks great. The scenery looks great. Great. The substance, though, slightly missing. And that's the shame. That's where the shame really is. So all that said, out of $15, the Smashing Machine, it's hard to, because the performances were good. You don't necessarily forget that you're seeing The Rock, but it's not wholehearted. Oh my gosh, it's The Rock the whole time. He definitely eventually slips into the role. The fighting scene looks good. Somebody in the theater gave it an ovation after it ended. Maybe they're more easily pleased, and some people are, so maybe it'll be a success. But it looks good, but there's definitely substance issues here. And so I will say, out of $15, I'm generally thinking of being more generous with this movie than I was with some of the other ones, but maybe not. Out of $15, the Smashing Machine is worth probably, I feel like I'm landing on 8 out of $15. I feel like I'm landing on 8. I'm trying to justify getting myself up to 9, but it's hard for me to do because again, when you think about the things, like it felt like Mark Coleman was there to pad time. Like he and Mark Kerr friendship, okay, great, but it felt like that was there to pad time. It felt like there were other pieces missing of this. And when you think more about it, there were certainly other pieces missing from this movie. So I would say, and then the prosthetics were good and all that, I would still say 8 out of $15 for this. I can't bring myself up to do any higher than 8 out of $15 for the Smashing Machine. I just can't. I just can't. Like, it's a better movie substantively than like London Calling, but I can't bring this movie, and for it being a better looking biopic than, I'm probably giving it higher points than I should, because it for it looking like a better biopic than we've seen in years. I'm probably giving it higher grades than I should probably be. It should probably be a 7. It should probably be a 7 out of 15. It should probably be a 7 out of $15, because there's a lot. There's it's not a substance, and some of the scenes, yeah, it should probably be a 7 out of $15 at highest. It's probably a 7 out of 15 at highest. Sorry, Rock. You can still send me the $7. You know where to find me. All wrestlers know each other. Anyway, that's my opinion. Tell me what you think down there in the comments section. Oh, speaking of down there in the comments section, there's one thing that tickled me a bit, and that is that with the issues that people are saying Dwayne is having with Hunter, with Paul, something tells me that Rock was a little irked that he had to keep wearing the word Hunter so many times in so many different scenes. I guess Hunter is an athletic wear that Mark Kerr used to wear all the time, or maybe a sponsor or something like that, and there was Hunter all over the place. So that probably irked Rock a little bit. But yeah, like, share, subscribe, follow me on all the stuff, Surreal469 everywhere, SURREAL, the numbers 469 on all the socials media, including some video sites that you can't name on YouTube, but I'll tell you something, they don't crumble, they don't grumble, they don't tumble. Actually, there is a Tumblr, but I'm not on Tumblr. Tumblr's terrible, especially for video content. But it's, it doesn't bumble, and I'm not mumbling, I don't mumble, I didn't say the word. I didn't, can't kick me off, didn't say, Anyway, all those different places you can find me, Twitter, etc. Follow the Potacito. We're going to get back on the Potacito bandwagon. I got to go learn some lines. Why? Because I'm going to play in November. It's a Wonderful Life. I got to learn a lot of lines for a lot of different characters in a short amount of time. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, I did, and I got to go and do that. So like, share, subscribe, follow me everywhere. And until next time, everybody, you know how we do it here on the 2 Drink Minimum Movie Reviews. Cheers.